Every moment that I'm dreaming is dangerous. Buried deep inside is what I can't comprehend. Seeing past what is so obvious, not so obvious.
Growing pains, switching lanes comes with blind spots. For too long, I clocked out and thought that time stopped. You see the seconds make up minutes and minutes make up the hours. Small decisions make the man, that's what I gotta watch.
Good evening, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening.
Wherever you are, whatever you're watching. This is episode 3. Not so obvious. Excited. The first 2 were amazing. And today we got a real sticky one today. Sticky. Supreme Court Justice Judge Mr. Clarence Thomas. For us, a couple of weeks ago, you see him. He actually the affirmative action gets taken out of the process completely. So there's a kind of uproar in the country, specifically with, of course, African American people. But in some research about him, and then we'll get to the question, right? Clarence now was originally in seminary to be a priest, did not like the response of the Catholic Church to the civil rights movement, which is interesting, right? So then he actually he was inspired to go to law school from that particular thing, right? So then he goes to law school to become the answer to something like that. But while he was in school, he didn't want for his white colleagues to think that he got to where he got because of affirmative action.
Which he was a recipient of.
Absolutely.
So let's be clear, 2 minutes in, he was a recipient of affirmative action. Please proceed.
Yes.
Which he was a recipient of, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a mandate that 10% of the incoming class was to be, a minority, and he was one of 12.
He was one of them, right?
Yeah.
Which has nothing to do with qualification, by the way.
Yeah, well, we're going to get to that. You already getting warmed up.
I'm in it. I'm fully in it.
It's why I'm wearing all black.
Exactly. I'm fully in it.
So this becomes a question. With positions of power that are directly connected to purpose, our vision, right? How do you separate vision and purpose from the stigma around that vision or purpose? For example, all police officers beat people, right? Are all preachers or pastors are crooks and womanizers. All politicians are liars. So it's almost like the profession is, even if a person, and those specific professions are almost always connected to purpose and vision, because those are like public service type of professions, and usually people don't do it unless they feel called to it, right? So most of those things are vocational. So it's like, how you now separate the stigma that comes with that, and now I'm just spinning off of the Clarence Thomas situation. What y'all got?
You or me first?
You hit it.
I think I'll go personal and then global. Personally, I never wanted to be a pastor. My parents were pastors. And so for me, that was the stigma and everything that went along with it, shady, whatever, which my parents never were. But for me to see what they experienced and what people thought, for me, I was like, that'll never be me. And here I am, right? And I spent years wasting energy trying to fight a stigma that I never had to fight. And that's what I realized. You can think what you think, but I think the game is realizing that every ounce of resource that I have, including my own personal energy, has to be used doing what I was called to do and operating in purpose. So if I can operate at 100%, if I'm not using 20% trying to fight something, trying to fight this invisible judgment that I've literally placed on myself, really, to be honest with you, right? So I'm now taking 20% away from myself, trying to figure out how to make people understand that I'm not what you think I am, when I could use that other 20% to just be it. And so I think that in some ways, with even in the situation with Clarence Thomas, why do you feel like you have to spend energy trying to prove to other people that you belong just like them? Just belong. Does that make sense? Because now when I'm thinking about how do I manage what you think about me, now I'm drifting away from purpose. And the game of purpose is always what is causing me to drift and what keeps me anchored in it. It's either or. And I think you just have to make a decision, because if I start managing what you think about me and you know what I'm saying, and I'm editing everything I say, like the idea of being free in your purpose, you can't put a price tag on that. You know what I'm saying?
And I think, to your point, in terms of freedom and purpose, the reality is that a lot of people create a story around what their carrier is to their purpose, right? If purpose is a journey,
Yeah.
then I'm choosing my carrier, then they're saying, oh, you know what? I need to be in this thing to get there.
Yeah.
When Clarence Thomas, when he was fighting the stigma and against it, the reality that he was part of it, and in that incoming class, there was a quote in in one of his documentaries that said that one of the things that came up was the admission said that not one of them that received it deserved it. So he then took on, in with his purpose, now this fire that said, I'm going to make my life about proving them wrong. So when are you like in line with your purpose versus trying to prove someone wrong or prove another point that really takes away from you having the full strength in what you're called to do?
His power. And I love that you said that, because what he's seeing as purpose was a vehicle to the purpose. The seat is not the real power, it's his story.
Yes.
But this is the thing. So be him though. Be him though, right?
Yeah.
And I'm, for the record, I am not a Clarence Thomas fan.
Yeah.
But I'm processing, okay, we are all sitting here talking about it. But what did he feel like with the quote you just said? What does he feel like with them saying, now one person that got here on their own merit, right? And if you petty, like, okay, let's keep it 100. Petty.
For sure.
Petty.
Oh,
Petty with purpose, though.
Petty.
You know what I'm saying? Yes, petty, yes.
So what I'm saying is, from a petty standpoint, what is the natural thing is to prove. How many times have we been, us three, how many times we've been in space where people have been like, Jill, she didn't really got
She
it.
shouldn't be here. Yeah.
And then she going like, oh, okay, give me about 5 seconds. Then you get up and you show up with, it's almost like the fire. The problem with Clarence is his fire was not defined. So when your fire is not, when your fire cannot, so his fire now just got started like just, burning everywhere as opposed to him being focused. So I'm saying that his fire now that we all have, because we all petty, how do you control that and direct it in a way that doesn't impact history?
You got to sit yourself down and know who you are ultimately. Like, I know, because what he did, you're right. In trying to prove that he's not somebody who didn't belong, right? Or that he's not disqualified. In trying to prove that, he's burning bridges for generations.
Right. I mean, right.
So let's process that. You are literally altering history with your votes because you want to prove something about yourself. So if your purpose is just about you, it's not really purpose. If my purpose is about a location or a seat, that's not purpose.
But that's the thing.
That's career advancement.
100%. But see, the whole thing is but his brain is going, I don't want one black person to actually get to where they're going, to be said that they didn't deserve to be there.
But he's also saying, I don't want one black person to ever get there either. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm afraid I don't want anybody to say that you got here over the bridge that I got over, so let me burn it. But now you have no way to get over to the other side.
And I think it's the difference between being faced with a decision along your purpose and saying, you know what, I'm going to lean in and I'm going to carve and create and be authentic and evolve, versus, you know what, I'm going to get rid of my black wife and I'm going to get a white wife, or I'm going to, right? Because there's this idea that this is what I need. Like love, right or wrong, like that's not the point. The point is that he had a black wife. And then all of a sudden, in his own decision making, that wasn't right for whatever reason. Then he moves on and he says, okay, well, I need to join this club. And so then he gets into these spaces where he's the only one in these spaces with these clubs. And instead of being whatever it is that he's called to be with that fire, it's like, let me assimilate. Let me make sure that I fit in. Let me make sure they can never say. So now the proving in the fire is beyond just you know what I mean? I have a seat. It's now become this idea that let me burn that bridge. Let me not let it be said where someone else can't cross over. So I completely agree. And I think that really, for me, is the big problem, is that you're now carving a path, making decisions, creating a scenario that now becomes hard to defend and say that it's something that an entire people can look at and say, well, I'm proud of, and I can do that too. Or if I do that, then it becomes a plumb line of how I need to advance.
Yeah.
It's not duplicatable.
Yeah.
True. I mean, I told one of the homies, I ain't gonna say who it was, but the drifting process in vision and purpose is crazy. Because when you first start, you start with so much hope, so much authenticity, so much focus. But once you get to a destination, the distance between the arrival or the type of arrival and the beginning stages when you didn't have it is so distant. Like, listen to you talk about him, I'm going, when you don't revisit what initiated the journey, it causes you to basically to have what we say in church, strange fire.
Yeah.
Like your fire then becomes unfocused and undefined because you don't even remember. Like I would love to ask him, do you actually remember how you felt when the Catholic Church didn't respond correctly to civil rights? That's the thing that started you in this direction to begin with. And now because you have so much distance, you now drifted. And the fire that burned in the beginning now has now become strange because you're not even connected to your initial, the thing that made you do it to begin with.
And it goes even deeper than that because not only have you drifted, but you now have become what you hated. Purpose and proving, and that's what when you guys were just talking, what came up for me was that purpose and proving is a very toxic cocktail. When you mix purpose and proving,
it don't mix.
It becomes volatile and it becomes unpredictable and it becomes explosive in the way that it can harm people around you when your purpose and your proving collide.
I definitely can see that because I feel like in his own story of proving, he has chosen things that are toxic, like to our generation, to bring close to him and to lean into and to say, well, this is what I'm agreeing with and this is what I'm connected to.
Yeah.
And I just think at some point when you're in a path of purpose, you then have to look at the bigger picture of what it means to impact, sacrifice, stand for, advocate, in whatever realm it is, at whatever level. Like he's at this very, very high level in the courts of the land that have impact for generations until it comes up again or until it becomes, raised in that court. But what do we do in the meantime? How do we navigate? How do we empower? How do we how do we let them know, like, look, even though this is the case, this is what we have to do in the meantime, or this is how we occur. People are trying to come up with like alternate programs and like different ways to still be able to extend opportunity. But then as a group, like how do we create opportunity? And even navigating this, what just came up was like in this, there's going to be a lot of people whose purpose is going to be presented and they're going to have to be faced with making a decision in leaning into the fight or the agreeance with how this impacts us.
Yeah, what's that? The homie Jean Jobs, she does this thing in one of the trainings. The end of it is the differences between doing and being, right? And I think she said, or somebody said that God made us human beings, not human doings.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so many times I think with the purpose piece of it, we keep talking about way of being. I'm going like that toxic cocktail of proving and purpose. Like, how do you separate the two? How do you control your human being piece when you want to prove? Because I think it's a natural occurrence.
Absolutely.
You want to prove somebody wrong.
It's awareness. You just got to know it. It's not that it's not going to come up. It's going to come up. But there's a moment when you know that you're leaning towards proving. And I think it's just at that point, you just have a decision to make. You know what I mean? Like, I know when proving is coming up. Like, oh, I'm about to show you. I got you. I see you.
And
you know what I mean?
Is that so bad all the time? Because
No.
that's motivation, right?
No, yeah,
To execute.
it can be, but I think when purpose and proving, when they're in the same space, right? Like there can be a motivation, but here's the issue. So if my point is to prove that I can sit here with you guys, then once I'm sitting here, my purpose is also over. Because now I'm here. Now all I'm thinking about is how to stay here when my purpose could be beyond this. My point is, what if the whole purpose in Clarence's mind was to get to a space where he was treated equally with his other white counterparts? Well, now that he is, his whole job is just to protect that. Not to do what he was called to do once he got there. See, that's what happens with purpose and proving. Once you get to what you feel is a status quo of proving, I'm done. So is purpose. When they're intertwined, when they collapse, then once you've proved it, you're done. So proving becomes your cap when you don't know when it's showing up. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So if I just want to get married, once I get married, I'm done. That day, I'm done because I proved to y'all that I'm marriage material.
Right. I mean, that happens often.
It happens all the time, but I'm going to keep it gender free. But the point is, you know what I'm saying? Once I get there, then I'm done. But you forget that there's a lifetime after that, but you never grow beyond the wedding day because you just wanted to prove that you were marriage material. Now this poor soul that's connected to you is waiting for the rest of you to show up. That never does because you just wanted to get to the day.
But basically what you're saying is that if you add proving in the wrong space with purpose, it's no longer purpose, it's an event.
It's an event.
Right.
It's an event.
And events have an ending.
They always do. And that's the difference between the being and the doing. Once I've done it, ain't nothing else to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So for him, it's like, I'm here now. I'm in the highest court. I'm done. So I also don't want to make room for anybody else. So if it's about me, I know which bridge to burn so nobody takes my seat.
Yeah, because I wonder how many young people, how many kids he's ran into at Yale that he could have mentored or, you know what I mean, made a way for or say, hey, do it this way. This is the roadmap.
Yeah, or how many people he could have just shared the truth of his story with.
Yeah.
You know how motivating it would have been for people to see, like, nah, I made it despite all of the stuff, despite everything that I fought. This could be you too.
Yeah.
Like, just not distancing yourself from the truth of who you are is a very powerful place.
And even being able to say, you know what, I got the opportunity because it wasn't afforded. I got the opportunity, and when I took it, this is what I did with it.
Yes.
And being able to say that. So being able to have like that type of track record. And I think that to me is the difference. When you were talking about proving and purpose, in my mind, don't ask why, I thought of a cocktail. But anyway, you
we did.
We know why. We know why you thought of a cocktail.
Go with that.
So when
did you have one today before you got here?
Whatever. So when you mix the two together, so my mind, I thought, gosh, when you mix purpose and proving, I mean, any two things you mix together in a cocktail, you cannot separate it once it's mixed. Once it's mixed, it's all together. like, there's no extracting, there's no straining, there's no way of fixing it. The only thing I could do is I could add more of one or the other. I can add more. I can work towards diluting one. It will always be there, but I could work towards diluting it because I no longer want to taste it. I'm not sure if I'm talking to somebody.
Put it on the
whoever
rock.
makes
Put it on the
something
rocks.
You
but-
pray.
Put it on the rocks. Water it
Purpose
down.
on the rocks.
Purpose on the rocks, exactly. Which is, I mean, and that's the truth, right?
It is.
If
I
you
love
find
that.
yourself in that space, just add more purpose. Add more. Remember the beginning. Remember the why. Remember those moments. Just add more, and then eventually you won't taste the other.
I think another thing, why you guys, that was really good too, by the way. And I want to just go on record by saying,
Make me want to.
I want to go on record saying she really got into that.
Yeah.
Like
The
her
mixing
whole,
of the
like
two.
her whole energy, just like and the mixture, right? That's funny. What I was thinking when you guys are talking to, back to the awareness piece, is that when you add proving to purpose, it makes you unaware of the facts, right? So you become blind to the facts. Because when you're in the proving mode, it'll never be enough. You'll always want to prove more, right? So, yeah, no problem. So then, like, literally, the test for Clarence was not whether he got in by affirmative action. That wasn't the proof. The proof was when he was in the classroom with everybody and the teacher gave out a test.
Yeah.
And what came back from that test, or essay or whatever, was a grade.
Yes.
Everybody took the same test. The fact is, his grades were comparable to everybody in the room, and that should have been enough to say, I belong here because my grades are the same, if not better, than my colleagues in this space.
Yeah.
But that wasn't enough, so he couldn't be fully aware.
But I think I to that point, I think that what I feel like you're leaning on is the idea that there's this part of him, or there's a part in really all of us that becomes insatiable, right? It's that you can't satisfy it.
Yeah.
Because even as he elevated in his career, even when who was it? Reagan who saw him, or I think it was Reagan.
I think it was Reagan.
So when he saw him, he actually saw him and wanted him towards his race relations. He couldn't get away of the very same thing that he wanted to not be known for, because guess what? No matter what you do, you're gonna be known for it.
Yeah.
You black,
So-
brother?
You black, bro.
You black, brother? And he like,
He black.
black.
I'm sorry.
He me black. Listen.
So I don't know. I just my point is that there's that part that becomes insatiable. There's this part that's like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to solve it or fix it or be able to satisfy it. And the reality is that you take it with you. It doesn't go away.
You got to lean into it. And I think that's the thing, that the question when you were saying what, it all comes full circle, right? Because we were saying when it comes to purpose and you're dealing with this stigma on the purpose, what do you do with that? What do you do with the purpose and the stigma? And it's the same thing that goes back to the cocktail. Which one are you going to keep pouring into, right? Or pouring in the glass to dilute the other? That is literally the question. Are you gonna keep trying to prove, because that's what you do? Your solution to the stigma is to prove you're not that. So am I gonna continue to pour in proving, or am I gonna continue to pour in purpose? And you have to make that decision. Which one am I gonna lean into? Proving you wrong, right? Or walking in what my purpose is. And that's a focus issue. That's, again, proving is just another focus situation. You know what I mean? And you have to decide, as a person of purpose, moving and walking in purpose, what am I focusing on? What am I feeding? All of that. And then how do I block out the noise of trying to... Here's the thing. We spend so much time trying to prove to everybody else how different we are. I'm not like every other man. I'm not like every other black man. I'm not like every other pastor. I'm not like every other woman. I'm not like... Truth be told, all of us are two decisions away from being exactly what we say we're not.
A text message away, brother.
That's it. And it's like, once I realized that truth, Like the truth of it is, I am like everybody else in the sense that I can make bad decisions. I can have a bad day. I can say something that hurts somebody. I can, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I am like like I used to hate that. Like, oh man, da, 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 da. No, I'm not. And I'm gonna prove you spend so much time doing that, you don't develop your own character, trying to prove something else. And now I'm working on my image because I want to make sure you see me a particular way. And now I've spent 20 years on performance rather than actually making headway in my purpose. So now my purpose has become sanitizing my history and my present to make it presentable to you. That's my purpose. My purpose is now looking good. Right? So when Clarence has the opportunity to make a decision just with his vote, because it doesn't mean that I don't even have an issue with his vote. And that may be controversial for some people. I don't have an issue with the fact that he voted against affirmative action. This is not political for me. My concern for him specifically is that you are voting vehemently against the very thing that got you there. That's weird for me.
That's strange, but
That's weird for me.
bro,
I'm just saying that's weird.
That's
and I
weird.
understand we can all go that way. But what I'm saying is, I think that when your purpose is, when you're drilled down to your purpose, all you see is you,
yeah.
that's not purpose to me. Purpose is always going to impact other people.
So if you were to, okay, practical, right? Let's do some so I'm a person watching this and I have ambitions of being a public servant. How specifically do I separate the stigma of whatever it is from the purpose? How do I make myself care? How do I do it?
It's not your job. Like, don't focus on how do I separate the stigma. When you're you and your character is developed, you will naturally do that.
So you say develop the character.
Develop who you are. Develop your character, because who you are is the thing that people are going to
How do you develop your character?
focus. Knowing, like, honestly spending time with yourself so that you really understand, why are you here? Like, I don't think that I think people think they know their purpose. And I think most people know what they want to do, but they don't know their purpose, which means I know what I want to do, but I don't know why I want to do it or what I'm supposed to do with it once I get there.
Clarify
Clarify it.
why you're here.
Why? Why are you doing the thing? Because that gets into the being, right? Like, why am I still breathing when there are multiple times when I can see through my life when I should have lost my life? Why am I here? Why, in all of the fighting of not being a pastor, am I a pastor? What is that for? What's the reason? And it always goes back to my story. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
So I think just knowing, when you don't separate yourself from your own journey, when you stay grounded in the truth of who you are, failures, victories, highs, lows, the truth of who you are, that anchors you into a real purpose, because that story will inform you.
I think also, based on what you said, I love the feedback, the information that you get as you live longer, right? As
Yeah.
you're living life.
Yeah.
Because the reality is that a lot of times people mistake purpose by responding to events. And events happen in your life, and they happen to us all. And the same event can happen to 10 people, and 10 people will respond differently.
Yeah.
You know, 10 people will have an occurrence, a trauma, a danger, and it'll happen. And, you know, a few will get over, a few will be suffer for it, and then a few will take it on as their life cause. And so when events happen, being conscious of how you respond to it, and then also the story that you tell yourself. I think that the reality is that because of these series of events, because of life's occurrence, you begin to frame and start to edit and start to write the story of what you're scripting for your life. And so when you're authentic to the character that's being built, you're responding to, as things are happening to you, you have examples, and you've got proof, and you've got feedback of this kind of core of who you are because of how you're responding.
You gave me two, right? So give it to me in a sentence. So I got clarify why you're here. 1, 2.
I would say 2. It is check your temperature to how you are responding to life occurrences, right? So check yourself, check in with your character, check in with the story as life is happening to you, because that gives you key feedback to lean into your purpose.
Thirdly, I would say, like processing Clarence. This is what I just had the thought. Like, you have to stay connected to your inspiration. The thing that inspired you at the beginning. We talk about this a lot with the Vision Continuum. Everything starts with inspiration. So at the very, very beginning, you were inspired. But I also realized this, inspiration also equals a group. You are always inspired in a community.
Yeah.
So then the question I would have for him now is, what is his community now? Because my suspicion is that as he moved, he changed groups. And then the groups now affect his outcomes and the way he proceeds with life, because your purpose must have a community. And when your community now is separate from your purpose, right, it affects the way you show up. It puts you in proving stage because you're not in the right group, because community is directly connected to accountability, right? So who are you accountable to? That actually is a group, right? What group are you? If I separated from you all, it would change some of my decision making. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's easy for him not to have connection to affirmative action in the same way he did when he was upset with the Catholic Church and how they responded to the civil rights, because that's not the same group that he's in anymore. So I would tell everybody watching also is be mindful of your group, and be mindful of what have inspired you in the beginning. Because if you disconnect from that, then you can actually start drinking that cocktail that Jill was talking about and that Ray was talking about. Be mindful of that. And I want to say this too, like with us, what we have with us in session 5, a way for you to be accountable, for your communities to be straight, for you to figure all that stuff out. Go to our website. We can process more with you. You don't even know what your purpose is. You don't know where to start. We have all kinds of things that would help you, coaches that can help you. Get all the information from our website. Thank you for listening to us today. And we know it was helpful. Go back and listen to it several times so you can get all the nuggets. See you soon. Peace.